and pass it over to Lynette.
Thanks, Matt. I'll go ahead and share my screen.
Hi everyone, my name is Lynette Washington and I am one of the instructional designers for the Center for Teaching Excellence and Innovation, also known as CTEI. This is part 2 of the Blackboard Weighted Total and Grade Center workshop.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Now, just to piggyback on what Matt said about accommodation and accessibility, another option to go besides creating a second column is using the test exemption tool. So you can use that by going to the test and clicking on the test options, or you can use this when you originally create the test. So as you can see, these are the options that's set for the current students. They have 2 attempts, they have 30 minutes. This is when the test is open. All you have to do is use the test availability exceptions for students with accommodation or who needs to just take it at another time. So what you want to do is click on Add User, and then you choose. This will show everyone in your class, so you choose the person that needs the accommodation. So I'm going to choose Minnie Mouse here and then press submit. And as you can see, Minnie Mouse has 2 attempts. Well, her accommodation varies, so I'm going to give her 3 attempts. These are the regular settings. Her accommodation says that she needs longer time than anyone else, like 10 minutes longer. So I'm going to make her test worth 40 minutes. All the other settings I'm going to leave the same. But if I wanted to, I could also change the availability date. Like, say, for instance, she had told me in advance she couldn't take that exam. So I might want to say on that particular day. So I might want to say, let's open it on the 17th at this time, and let's close it on the next day, because maybe she's meeting in the office or something, or being proctor. And so I'm going to save those new dates for her, and everything else I'm going to leave the same. So all I have to do is press submit, and now Minnie Mouse has different accommodations than everyone else. And when she completes her exam, it will not be in a separate column. It will be in an exact same column as everyone else. So you won't have to use that exemption. So her grade will show right here just like everyone else's if she took it with them at the same time. So the total column, by default, the total column is set as the external grade column and appears in each course. The external grade column is indicated by a green check mark on the column's header. Like any other column, you can rename it, change the settings, change which columns are included, or delete the column. However, before you are allowed to delete this column, you must set another column as the eternal grade. Like, say for instance, as you can see, if I'm trying to delete this column, there's no delete column option here. And because this is the external grade, I must go and set another column. So I'm going to go ahead and click on weighted total, and I'm going to say set as an external grade. So now the check mark is here. So this is the main external column, and as you can see, if I go over the total, I can now see the delete column. So I'm able to delete this column, and my external grade column now is the weighted total. So I'm going to go ahead and put that back to the default so that the total column is marked as the external grade. So the total column basically generates a grade based on the cumulative points earned related to the points allowed. You can select which column and categories that you want to include in a total columns calculation. By default, all columns are included. But you can change this, and you can create several total columns and change it. And just to piggyback on one Amber's example about the student with the discussion board. So what I can do, so right now, as you can see, Minnie Mouse has a total of 106, and I have a total of 239 points. That's all the columns total grade. So if I wanted to change this, I can just edit the total column. And instead of it calculating all the grade columns, I just only wanted to calculate the discussions. I want to see what Lynette has or everyone has so far. So I'm going to go ahead and just highlight all the discussions, and I'm going to have Blackboard just tell me how much discussions are. And as you can see, my total for these 3 discussions is 12 points versus the total for all the columns. And as you can see, Lynette got a 4 on week 1, 3 on week 2, and a 5 on week 3, which totals up to 12. So that's how the total column works. Like I said, you can select all the columns, or you can select only a few. And again, you can make several total columns and name them anything you want, so that you're calculating discussions, or you're calculating tests, or you're calculating different columns.
So
my question is, what does that mean, external grade?
I think the main purpose of the external grade is if the LMS, so if Blackboard is pushing the grade into another system, like Colleague, WebAdvisor, or something like that, but we don't use that at Rush, so it doesn't really matter that much. But I just tell people to set the external grade as like what they want to be calculated as the final grade. But in reality, it's for if there was a system that is pushing that grade into like the final grade system.
So I'm going to go back. I don't know if I changed that back. I'm going to go back. And I did. I'm changed that back to all graded column versus the selected columns, what I said. So that's pretty much how you use the total columns. Pretty easy, pretty simple. But like I said, people, usually don't use that. But you can really use it. And like I said, you can build 2 or 3 of them. You can use it to just calculate just tasks, or calculate just discussions, just assignments, or use it like it's intended to use to calculate all columns. So that's instructor's discretion. So next, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the weighted columns, which is this column right here. And as Matt pointed out, there's 8 categories in the Grade Center, and the categories really play a big part in the weighted column. So the weighted columns basically is how Blackboard calculates each column and displays a grade for the selected number of columns or category based on each of the respective worth of the total grade. So note that if you have a text column, it will not be calculated in the weighted column. So by default, every course comes with an empty weighted column. You don't have to use it. And when you don't use it, I suggest you just hide it from the students. Most of the time I hide it from the students anyway, because having a weighted total and a total column showing, sometimes it confuses them. So in the weighted column, you can just go ahead and click edit column information, just as you would in all of the columns. And it's set at percentage. And so now you can start selecting your columns to go over here and decide which you want to call them. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to say my assignment 1, and I'm going to put it over there. And this will correspond to what you have as your syllabus. So if you have, 2 assignments or whatever, and this assignment, they're all worth 20 points, 20%, or should I say, and that final assignment is worth, 40%, because it's way heavy. That's a project paper. Your weighted column must be 100%. And so right now this is 80. And if you click anywhere, it'll calculate from you. So if I try to submit this before making it 100%, it will give me an error. So I did these 3 assignments that I weighted, but I also have discussion boards in my class that count as a 20%. And instead of me going in and selecting each discussion and going, okay, this is worth 5%, this is worth 5%, this is worth 3%, I'm just going to go ahead and use the category, because all my discussions are categorized as discussions. So I'm going to set the discussion and I'm going to put it over here. And what it says is that everything that's categorized as discussion, I want to make that 20% of the grade. And so there's my 100%. My discussions is going to be 20% no matter if I got 1 or 10. It's going to lump it together and it's going to be worth 20% of the student's grade. Also, what they have down here is the drop grades. What you can do if you put in here, drop the lowest grade, you can put 1, drop the lowest, drop the highest. It'll drop either the lowest or the higher grade. Whatever I put, in, drop 1 of the highest grade. I could say drop 2 of the highest grade, but of course I probably wouldn't do that. I'll probably drop 1 of the lowest grade versus the highest grade. So if I do that, Blackboard knows, okay, it had 20 discussions and I'm gonna drop that lowest grade of that discussion in that column. And so that's how you drop the lowest grade. And basically the same with the lowest value or the highest value. You can, select it and say, remove that. And what Blackboard is, or should I say drop it, it's one or the other. Drop the lowest grade or the highest grade, or use the lowest value or the highest value. And basically, if you select this over here, that means you are removing all grades from the calculator except for the best or the worst case scenario.
Hey, Lynn, can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Suppose you do not want to drop a grade. Is there something that you need to click on? Because I can't.
Just don't do anything. Yeah, you just don't do anything if you don't want to drop anything. Like even if this is highlighted, if I didn't click one of these radio buttons, it's not going to do anything.
Okay.
If I be clicking that, if I don't put how many to drop, it's not going to do that. So by default, it's there, but you don't have to use it.
Lynette, I have a question. So if we want to do this category placement, like let's say we have some quizzes and the students have taken 2, they've got 3 more. Can I set this up now and then whatever quizzes I add in the future will just automatically upload, or do I have to set this all up after they're all in?
You can do it either way. However, if it's not going to total 100%, which means it's not going to calculate correctly, because chances are only did 3 quizzes and you didn't put 4 and 5 in yet. But if you have the quiz columns in the Grade Center, even if it's hidden for students, if you have all those quiz columns there, you can go ahead and move it over and set it now. But you can change this at the beginning, at the end, anytime you want. That's why I do suggest that you kind of hide this column for students until you finish getting it worked out. Because I do know sometimes you don't have your last test, your final exam created yet, and you want to make it at the end or change it. So yeah, I would suggest hiding this column, and you can go in and change this at any time.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and press submit.
Lynette, can I ask another question? Can you explain the equally versus proportionally? I always get them confused.
I think, let me see if I can get this right, because I don't use it all. I think equally they're gonna calculate, and Matt, if I'm misspoken here, please feel free to jump in. I think equally, if you do equally, it means that they're gonna count all these grades equally in here, and proportionate just means it'll, like you said, change the proportion of it. I don't know if I kind of said that right. I might have to look that up and explain it a little better. But it just
actually means, now I remember, like, so we have different numbers of points on different exams. So we do it proportionally so that it's like all the ones you got right over all the ones total. I think that's what it means by proportionally. And equally means it would be like if you had 5 discussion boards, they would each be worth 4%.
Okay.
Like that.
Yeah, it says here that it only makes a difference if you have columns with different points possible in the same category. So for example, a discussion category with columns worth 5 points and columns worth 10 points. If all of the columns in the category are equal, both settings work the same way. So it seems like it only matters if you have different assignments that are in the same category that have different values. Like if all of your discussions are worth 10 points, then it doesn't matter. But if you have some that are like 5 points and some that are 10 points, I think that's where it matters.
Yeah, so we have like 5 tests and they are all different points, but we don't want them all to be the same percentage. So we want them proportional, not equal. That's what it is.
Yeah, so it says here, when you have categories of differing values, equal weighting converts the columns to percentages and averages the percentages to get the category composite grade. It essentially gives each item equal weight when determining the composite grade. Proportional weighting calculates a category composite grade by adding the raw scores and dividing by the total points possible. So it retains the proportional weight of each item. So items with a larger value have more effect on the composite grade.
And I do have instructors that, like, say for instance, their introduction discussion board may be worth only, 2 points or 3 points, whereas the other discussion boards are worth a whole lot more because, introduction, that's, sometimes they don't even give them that, but yeah, they might give them like 2 points for doing it just so that the student can do it, and all the rest of the discussion boards are worth 10 points. So that's a good way to use that.
So I just want to make sure I have clarity here, because generally I have the tests being weighted the same. Just say I had one test that was worth 20%, one test that was worth 30%, one test that was worth 40%. However, and so if I put that in a category of tests, then it would be appropriate, Matt or Lynn, to put it as proportional, since they were worth differently, or should I say equally? I'm just trying to get clarity on this.
If you use the assignment itself, you don't have to select anything. As you can see, I didn't use a category here at all. I just used the assignment itself. Like I said, assignment
Right.
1 or assignment
I do that. That's what I do. But to say you had 7 tests, okay, and you did not want to just put down 7 tests, and you would put them in a category, but they were all different.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is proportional or equally. Say one test is 10%, one test is 15%, and so on. One test is 5%.
Yep, that's correct. If you didn't want to do it individually and you definitely wanted to use the category, anything that was labeled test, yep, you would absolutely do that. And then you would check how you want to, how you want to score. Yep, that's correct. Any additional questions on that? Okay, so now I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the weighted totals and how everything is shown. I kind of think I went over that just a little bit, but I'm gonna go ahead and turn on my PowerPoint for that, or should I say, so we can talk about the total points, because I don't know if I set them all right in the Grade Center. So when I'm interpreting my weighted columns, say for instance, these are my tests 1 through 4, and then my final exam, and each test is worth 30 points. Test 1 and 2 and test 3 and 4 is worth 60 points, and my final exam is worth 100. So these are the percentages that they're weighted on, and the points and percentages. And this is exactly what's probably in your syllabus for when you have your assignments. So that's what my tests are worth. So on this page right here, it kind of shows how each one is calculated. So test 1 is worth 30%. So this is how Blackboard calculates, because I always used to do this in Excel, and it used to kind of come out just a tad bit different. I'm like, what is Blackboard doing? So this is how Blackboard calculates each item when you have it worth using weighted total. So test 1 is worth 30%. So they time the 15%, and then that's when they get the 4.5. So the same thing for test 2, because they was worth the same. And then in test 3, they take the 60 points and they time the 15% again. And this is where they get the 9. And again, 3 and 4 was equal to the same. And that final exam was worth 100 points. So in that final exam, Blackboard just takes it and times it times 0.4, which is the 40%, and this is what they get. So your total points will be 280, and then when Blackboard sums up the weighted points in this category, basically you'll be getting a 67 as the weighted total points. So this is good to know when you're trying to figure out what a student get and they don't kind of understand. You can kind of get them that breakdown or how each one is calculated. So this one, these are my tests. And these are, and I do have these in Blackboard, so I'll pop back to Blackboard in a minute for my students that I have. In test one, this is what the student got. So the student scored 22 out of the 30 points, and it was weighted at 15. So test one, it'll basically be the 22 divided by 30 times the 15%, and basically it was 0.11. So Blackboard is going to take each one of these tests individually, 2, 3, 4, use that same formula. The number that the score that the student got is divided by the total possible points, and then it's multiplied by the item and the weight, and then that's when you get that total. And they do that for each score. And basically, the student, the score will come out into a 7.925, and basically if you round it off, it comes to a 79%. So let me show you what I mean. So like in my total points, I'm going to just go back and not use the graded column, and again I'm going to just use that test example that I just showed. So I'm going to move all my tests over, test 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to move them over here, and this total column, I just wanted to go ahead and total all 4 of those exams and tell me what was given. As you can see, Blackboard shows that I got 222 points, and I got a 78.99, but if I round it off, it'll be 79. And as you can see, this is exactly what my breakdown was of the score for those 5 exams. I got 222 points, and it rounded off to a 7.9. So that's how Blackboard kind of calculates all of the weighted points and the scores, in case you're trying to figure out. And like I said, this makes my life so much easier than to try to do it by hand, put it in a cell. Sometimes I just make a different total column and just put the test there, and not mess with the regular total column, and then I can see what the students got for the test and what it's total out to. So that's kind of pretty much how the interpreter of the weighted columns are. That's pretty much it. Is there any questions on that weighted column?
No, I don't have any questions on the weighted column.
How about Matt, do you have any additional input, or do anybody else have any questions about it?
So Lynette, this is Paula Jo. So what I did, I do what you showed on my syllabus, where I have the weights, the percentage weights, and the total possible points. And I understand those are 2 totally different things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like for instance, I'm very discussion board heavy because my courses are more philosophy and theory type courses. And so the points they're not heavy on points, but it's heavy on how it's weighted in the course, right? So discussion board might be overall, all 15 weeks, it might be like, I don't know, 100 points or something, but it might be 75% of their grade. And so what happens is that if students don't participate in discussion, and I've had students who, my class was like the last class they had to take to complete all their coursework, if they kind of like blow it off, right? They just blow off the discussions because they see that it's only worth, 20 points for each week or whatever. But the reality is they could flunk the class because 50% of the grade, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's absolutely right. Again, you probably have to explain that to them, because sometimes they don't understand the difference of the points and the weights, and sometimes they're just looking at their points. So they should definitely be looking at the syllabus to seeing that the discussion board is not equally weighted towards assignments or exams. They might be heavier weighted to get a lot of participation, or they could be lower just because other assignments, depending on the course, may be of greater value for that student. So when you're doing stuff like that, I only suggest that you remind students that just because you got 5 out of here, and it looks like you got a 4, that the score is not always the same.
Right.
It's going by the weighted total. And like I said, you would put that in there. Did I take the discussions out? And what did you say? Like yours is worth like 75%
Yeah. Well,
of the
yeah,
grade.
yeah,
So,
it's exaggerated.
yeah. And
Okay.
maybe I'm just gonna say assignments are worth 25% of the grade.
Right.
So yeah, so you definitely have to let the students know.
Pay attention to that. Yeah.
Yeah, you really do, because as you can see, you know, I got an 80% of this class. If I was getting higher on those discussions, I'll probably, you know, have a higher score.
Yeah, and I just had that situation. He didn't fail the class. He ended up with a B, but it was truly because he blew off all the discussions like the last 3 or 4 weeks of the class.
Yeah,
and
that
great. And I don't think he had any concept or any idea that of the percentage, the weighted percentages. But I think you do bring up a really strong point that, and that's something I probably have not done well, is make sure the students are fully aware of those weighted percentages.
especially
They
if
just see it as a
column's
column
hidden.
on the syllabus. They don't really probably totally understand that. So I need to probably bring that point home more to them.
Yeah, especially if this is hidden. Sometimes this is hidden. So for an instructor point of view, like I said, this is just me. If something is a score, I always like to also display it, you know, as a percentage, just so I kind of know. Again, the students don't see this, so I know they got 4 points on this discussion, but you know, it calculates to 80%, you know, of their grade on this discussion. So I usually put both, but students only see the primary one and not the secondary one. Yeah, that's
Thank you so much.
that's what you really have to do is emphasize that weighted column.
Lynette, did you say the students do not see the secondary one?
They do not see the secondary one. They only see the primary score.
Oh, okay. Can you make it that way for them to see the secondary one? Or is that just
No,
the default?
that's
Okay.
not an option. The only thing I could say,
Okay.
if you wanted them to see the percentage, you just put the percentage first, you know, but the secondary is only for instructors only.
Only for instructors. Okay.
You know what I do, Lynette, is I actually make another column and it's called exam 1 as a percent. So
Yeah.
I give them their raw score, and then in the next column, I use whatever it is, create. This is where I really don't understand this. Create the calculated column or create column. I can't remember which one it is. And you can just use whatever is in the test 1 column and display it as a letter grade or percentage or whatever. That's what I do.
I've done that, Amber. I didn't know students could not see the secondary one.
Yeah, so that's definitely a good idea. And that's what I tell people, you know, just because you have one total column, you could make 3 or 4 of them, name them what you want and use them as you want, you know, so that students, because they are grade heavy, or should I say, they're looking at their grades all the time. And if you want less questions asked, I would just create additional columns. And name them what they should be so they can always see. And a lot of times I also, you know, give them that formula too, like how they're calculate that stuff. I give them that formula so they don't have to, you know, keep contacting you saying, hey, you know, what do I need? Or why do I got this? Or here's the formula, you know, you can calculate, because, you know, they really are just on their grades all the time. And so that's just some of the things I do, make additional columns and add them up. And just like Matt said, for the final score, for the final grade, you can make additional columns, you know, just make as many as you want, and, you know, you can hide them and show them as needed. So basically that was all of the discussion. We went over everything. Matt, did you have anything else, or if anybody had anything else other than that? That's the end of our session.
I don't have anything else.
Thanks, Lynn and Matt.
All right, you're welcome. And we will be sending out this recording. We'll chunk it up a bit though.
Okay.
All right, thank you everyone. Have a good day.
Thanks.
Take care.
Thanks, Lynette.
Bye, Peg.